My sister called me on a Tuesday evening in October, just as I was pulling a casserole out of the oven. She's a forensic pathologist at Vancouver General. She doesn't call me on weeknights unless something is wrong. I knew that before I even picked up the phone. I need to ask you something strange, she said. Her voice was flat in a way I hadn't heard since our mother's funeral. And I need you to answer me before you think about it. Is your husband home right now? I looked through the kitchen doorway. My husband was sitting on the couch in the living room, scrolling through his phone, his reading glasses pushed up on his forehead the way he always wore them when he wasn't actually reading anything. Yes, I said. He's right here. Why? She was quiet for 3 full seconds. I counted them. That can't be right, she said quietly. Because I'm looking at a man who is identical to your husband. He just checked into the Fairmont Pacific Rim. Room 1408. And the woman he's with is not you. I didn't say anything. I just stood there with the oven mitt still on my hand, looking at the back of my husband's head. Nora. Her voice sharpened. Are you listening to me? I'm listening, I said. He used his own name on the booking. I saw it on the hotel tablet when I was waiting for the elevator. Daniel Ashworth. That's his name, right? That's what it said. My husband's name is Daniel Ashworth. The man on my couch turned around at that exact moment, as if he felt me staring. He smiled at me, the same easy smile I had looked at for 11 years, and held up his empty coffee mug in a questioning way. I smiled back. I held up one finger. 1 minute. I walked to the bathroom, closed the door, and sat down on the edge of the tub. Tell me exactly what you saw, I said. My sister had been at the Fairmont for a medical conference. She'd arrived late, taken the elevator from the lobby, and happened to glance at the check-in desk as she passed. A man and a woman. The man had dark hair going gray at the temples, wire-rimmed glasses, a navy coat she described as looking expensive. He was laughing at something the woman said. He had Daniel's laugh. She knew Daniel's laugh. She'd been listening to it at our dinner table for over a decade. She said she almost called out to him. She stopped herself because the woman was tucking her hand into the crook of his elbow, and the way she did it was intimate in a way that made my sister's stomach drop. She took a photo. She sent it to me while we were still on the phone. I looked at it for a long time. The man in the photo was my husband. Or he was someone who looked so much like my husband that I could not find a single difference standing out to me. Same height. Same posture, that slight forward lean Daniel always had, like he was perpetually about to say something important. Same hands. I noticed the hands especially. Daniel has a small scar on his left index finger from a woodworking accident the year before we got married. I couldn't see the hands clearly enough in the photo to check for it. I went back out to the living room. The casserole's ready, I said. Can you set the table? He got up and went to the kitchen drawer for placemats. I watched him move through my house with the ease of a man who had lived in it for years. He knew where everything was. He put out the right number of forks. He poured water without being asked because he knew I always wanted water with dinner. Over the meal, I talked about a project at work. He talked about a meeting that had run long. He ate everything on his plate. He did not react when I passed him the salad with the shrimp in it. I registered that. I filed it away and I did not let my face change. Daniel has had a shellfish allergy since he was a child. It's not anaphylactic, but it gives him hives and makes his throat feel tight. He has mentioned it to every server at every restaurant we have ever visited together. He keeps Benadryl in the glove compartment of his car. The man across from me ate 6 shrimp and did not blink. I slept on my side of the bed that night and did not sleep at all. In the morning, after he left for work, I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee and made a list of everything I knew to be true. Daniel and I had been married for 11 years. We lived in our house in East Vancouver, a 3-bedroom craftsman we'd bought when the market was still possible for people like us. I was a civil engineer for a municipal consulting firm. Daniel was a senior project manager at a mid-sized construction company downtown. We had a joint account and separate accounts. We had no children. We had a good life. I had believed, until 22 hours ago, that I was happy in it. I called my sister. I need you to tell me everything again, I said. From the beginning. She told me. Then she said, Nora, where is Daniel right now? The real Daniel? That was the question I hadn't let myself ask yet. I pulled up his location on my phone. We'd shared locations with each other years ago after I got turned around driving home from a client site in Abbotsford. The little icon showed him at the office tower on West Georgia where his company occupied the 14th and 15th floors. But the man my sister had photographed at the Fairmont Pacific Rim the night before he had checked in under Daniel's name. I called Daniel's cell. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. His voice on the message was so familiar it made my chest hurt. I called his office line. His assistant answered and told me Daniel was in a planning meeting until noon and couldn't be disturbed. I said that was fine. I left no message. Then I did something I had never done in 11 years of marriage. I drove downtown, parked in the parkade across from his building, and waited. At 12:17, Daniel came out of the lobby. He was wearing the gray wool coat I had given him for his birthday 2 years ago. He was on his phone. He hailed a cab, got in, and the cab pulled away. He was real. He was there. He was my husband. Which meant the man who had eaten shrimp at my dinner table and slept in my bed was someone else entirely. I sat in the parkade for a long time before I trusted myself to drive. I did not go home. I drove to my sister's apartment in Kitsilano and sat at her kitchen island while she made tea and I told her everything. The shrimp. The ease of movement through my house. The way he'd smiled at me. "How long do you think this has been going on?" she asked. I thought about it carefully. I don't know when Daniel started coming home late. I assumed work. There were a few weeks in August where he seemed distracted, withdrawn. I thought it was the Henderson project, which was behind schedule. I wrapped both hands around my mug. But what if August was when this started? What if the man I've been living with for the past 6 or 7 weeks is not Daniel at all? My sister looked at me with the careful expression she uses when she's delivering difficult information to families. "You would know," she said gently. "Wouldn't you?" "I want to say yes," I said. "But I keep thinking about the shrimp. If I hadn't put shrimp in that salad by chance, would I have noticed?" Everything else was right. The way he holds his fork, the way he laughs, even the way he sleeps. If you told me yesterday that my husband could be replaced and I wouldn't notice, I would have said that was impossible. She was quiet. "I need to understand what's happening," I said. Before I confront anyone, my sister had a colleague. A woman she'd trained with at UBC who now worked as a forensic consultant and had, over the years, developed a secondary specialty in identity fraud investigation. She agreed to meet us that afternoon. Her name was Priya, and she had the focused, unhurried manner of someone who has learned to be precise in everything she does. She listened to the whole story without interrupting. When I finished, she asked me 3 questions. Did Daniel have any life insurance policies I wasn't the primary beneficiary on? Did he have any real estate or investments in his name only? And had anything changed in the past 2 or 3 months in terms of our financial accounts, new transfers, new linked accounts? Anything I might not have noticed? I didn't know the answers to the second and third questions. She said, "Find out." I went home that evening and the man was there. He was cooking. The kitchen smelled like garlic and onions, and he'd opened a bottle of the Okanagan Red we both liked, and everything about the scene was so ordinary that I stood in the doorway for a moment and felt the ground tilt under me. I ate dinner. I said I was tired and went to bed early. And at midnight, when his breathing had steadied into the slow rhythm of sleep, I took his phone from the nightstand. It was locked. Not with the passcode Daniel had used for 3 years, which I knew because he'd given it to me when he was in the hospital for a knee surgery and needed me to read his messages. This lock was different. A new 6-digit code. I put the phone back. I lay in the dark and breathed. The next morning I called a financial advisor I trusted. A woman named Carol who had helped us set up our retirement accounts 5 years earlier. I asked her to run a comprehensive review of everything: our joint accounts, the RRSP, the TFSA, the mortgage account. I said I was doing some personal financial planning and wanted a full picture. She called me back that afternoon. In the past 8 weeks, $43,000 had been moved out of our joint investment account in 4 transfers. The transfers had been authorized from a device I didn't recognize. They had gone to an account Carol couldn't trace through normal channels. $43,000. In 8 weeks. I sat with that number for a long time. Then I called Priya. She came over the following Saturday while the man was at what he said was a site visit in Burnaby. She went through the house methodically and quietly. She found 3 things. A burner phone in the back of Daniel's sock drawer, powered off. A folded piece of paper in the inside pocket of his gray coat, a handwritten list of names, dates, and what looked like account numbers. And in the home office, tucked behind a row of architecture books Daniel had owned since university, a small external hard drive that did not belong to us. Whoever this person is, Priya said, he's been thorough. But he made mistakes. The hard drive contained files. Priya copied them and took them with her. She said she would contact an associate at the RCMP Financial Crimes Unit. She asked me to keep behaving normally for as long as I could. Can you do that? She asked. I've been doing it for 7 weeks, I said. I can do it a little longer. What I did in those next few days, quietly and carefully, was verify everything I could about my actual husband. I found Daniel's name on a return flight from Tokyo, booked 6 weeks earlier and returned 2 weeks ago. I found charges on a credit card I hadn't known existed, a card in Daniel's name, linked to an address in Yaletown I didn't recognize. Hotel stays in Tokyo. Restaurants. Jewelry. Significant amounts of money spent on a life that had nothing to do with me. So there were 2 betrayals happening at once. My husband had arranged for someone to live his life at home while he built a different one somewhere else. And the someone he had arranged, whoever this man, sleeping in my bed, actually was, had apparently decided to also help himself to our savings. I found the link between them by accident, or close to it. I was looking through old emails on Daniel's laptop. He'd given me his laptop password years ago for the same reason as the phone, and I found a deleted email thread that his trash folder hadn't fully purged. The man's name was Thomas Freeland. He was a freelance actor based in Toronto who had, according to his professional website, 15 years of experience in theater and commercial work. He was 41 years old. He had the same coloring as my husband, the same general build, and in the headshot on his website, something in the set of his jaw and the way he held his head that made my breath go short. They weren't identical, but they were close enough that with the right haircut, the right glasses, 3 or 4 weeks of careful study, and a wife who had no reason to suspect anything, close enough. The email thread was fragmented but legible enough. Daniel had found Thomas through what appeared to be a private arrangement, not a formal agency. Thomas had agreed to a 6-week engagement posing as Daniel at home while Daniel was abroad. The compensation discussed was $30,000, paid in installments. $30,000 to be someone else's husband for 6 weeks. What Daniel had not anticipated, apparently, was that Thomas would also help himself to an additional $43,000 from the joint account. Priya told me later that Thomas had almost certainly done this before. The methodology was too clean, too practiced. He knew which accounts to target and how to move money without triggering immediate flags. He had walked into my home and been my husband, and simultaneously picked my financial life clean. And if my sister had not been staying at the Fairmont Pacific Rim for a pathology conference, and happened to glance at the check-in desk at the right moment, I might not have known until everything was gone. The RCMP made 2 arrests on a Friday morning in late November. Daniel was picked up at Vancouver International, coming off a flight from Narita. I was told his expression when the officers approached him was one of complete, total surprise, as though he genuinely had not expected to be caught. Thomas was arrested at the house. My house. I was not there when it happened. I was sitting in my sister's living room in Kitsilano, drinking tea, watching rain come down against the window. My sister sat beside me and didn't say much. She's good at that, at being present without performing it. It's the same quality that makes her excellent at her job, I think. What happens now? She asked eventually. I had already been thinking about this for weeks. In the practical way I think about most things. I'd spoken to a family lawyer. I'd separated my finances completely. I'd had the locks changed and the security system reset under a new code. I'd cataloged everything that had been in the house and made an inventory for insurance purposes. The Crown prosecutor thinks they have a strong case, I said. Fraud over $5,000, identity fraud, wire transfer offenses. Possibly more charges once they fully audit the Tokyo accounts. And the divorce? In progress. I paused. Did you know that in BC, even if your husband has been committing financial fraud against you from another country while paying an actor to live in your house, the separation process still takes time? My sister almost smiled. I did not know that. It does. I drank my tea. Everything takes time. What I hadn't expected, and this is the part I find myself returning to when I think about those weeks, was the anger. Not at Thomas, exactly. Thomas was a criminal who had made a calculated choice, and I understood calculated choices even when I despised them. The anger I wasn't prepared for was at myself. For not knowing. For eating dinner across from a stranger for weeks and convincing myself that the slight differences I noticed were just Daniel having a stressful season at work. For trusting so completely that I had stopped paying attention. Priya told me, when I said this to her, that I was doing what the human brain is designed to do. We fill in gaps with what we already believe, she said. You believed you knew your husband. So your brain kept confirming that. It's not a failure. It's how perception works. I understood that intellectually. It took longer to feel it. I went back to work. I focused on a drainage infrastructure project in Surrey that needed more of my attention than I'd been giving it. I had dinner with my sister every Thursday. I started running again in the mornings along the seawall, in the dark and the rain, which is when Vancouver is most itself. About 3 months after the arrests, I got an unexpected email. It came from a law firm representing Thomas Freeland, and it was a formal request for reduced contact from me as a witness in the upcoming proceedings' standard legal positioning. But attached to it was a separate letter, not on firm letterhead, in what I recognized from the email thread as Thomas's own writing. He wrote that he was not asking for forgiveness. He said he knew what he had done was wrong and that no explanation would make it otherwise. But he wanted me to know that he had not taken the role expecting to steal anything. He had taken it because he needed the money, and the job had seemed, he said, like performance. Like work he knew how to do. He said that sometime around the 3rd week, he had stopped being able to treat it that way. He said he had sent the anonymous text, the one I'd received in week 4, telling me to look at Daniel's home office files more carefully. He had sent it from the burner phone, then powered it off, and then spent the following week trying to continue the role while knowing what he'd set in motion. I know that doesn't change anything, he wrote. I just wanted you to know it was me. I read the letter twice. I did not respond. I forwarded it to the Crown Prosecutor's office as required. But I thought about it for a long time after. The thing about a long marriage is that you build your understanding of reality partly on the other person. You assume certain things are true because they have always been true. And when that foundation turns out to have been something other than what you thought, it doesn't just change the past. It changes the way you look at the present. I don't mean that cynically, I mean it as a kind of recalibration. I started consulting independently that spring, taking municipal contracts directly rather than working through the firm. It was more work, and, to start with, less money, but it was mine. Everything about it was mine, the clients, the decisions, the liability, the credit. My sister joked that I was finally running my own operation. You always should have been, she said. I probably wasn't ready before, I said. She considered this. Maybe, she said. Or maybe you just didn't know you needed to be. Daniel pleaded guilty to fraud-related charges in the spring. Thomas's case was more complex because of the Financial Crimes Unit's involvement, and was still ongoing as of the last update I received from the prosecutor's office. The marriage was legally dissolved in April. I still live in the East Vancouver house. I repainted the bedroom a different color. I got 2 cats, which my sister said was entirely predictable and which I maintain was a sound practical decision. The older one, a large gray tabby I named Felix, likes to sit on the kitchen table in the evenings and watch me cook, which I find, unexpectedly, to be very good company. In September, almost a year after that Tuesday phone call, my sister came over for dinner. I made the same casserole. We sat at the same table. Outside, the leaves on the maple in the front yard were turning. Do you think about him? She asked. She meant Daniel. She always specifies Thomas when she means Thomas. Not the way I expected to, I said. I think about the marriage. The version of it I believed I was in. Is that worse? I thought about it. It's different. Grieving a real thing is one kind of pain. Grieving something that wasn't entirely real is another. I'm still figuring out which is harder. My sister nodded. She knows how to sit with an unanswered question. Felix knocked her water glass 2 inches to the left and then looked very pleased about it. He knows it's your fault, I said. For calling me. My sister laughed. It was the real laugh, the one she doesn't use at work. I don't know what Daniel's life looks like now. I don't know whether the woman he was with in Tokyo stayed. I don't know whether Thomas, when this is all finished, goes back to the stage. Or whether whatever he felt in the 3rd week of pretending to be someone else's husband changed anything for him in the long run. What I know is this. I am living in a house that belongs to me. I run contracts under my own name. My sister calls me on Tuesdays and I always pick up. The maple is bare now, but it will come back. It always does, in Vancouver. Spring comes later than people expect. But it comes.